You want to continue?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now we're going to back up, and then when you put it in,
Just like
you
this?
yes,
Okay.
wait and see if it tells you if
Okay.
it lets you know that you voted the way you wanted to. Can you see?
Yes. Yes. I can. So that's all we need, right?
And you have to do page 2 because you voted the back
Next
side. There
page.
should be a way to
Yes.
say next or something,
Yes.
and then you should
Cast.
be able to cast your vote.
Okay.
And you got a ding. You're official.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great
You
day.
can leave this way.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, now let me back this up here just a second to show you something here. Now, look
Okay.
right.
Right. Yes.
Bam. Look at this. Donald J. Triumph. Her vote is now invalid. That's what I hear. I'm not the specialist on the deal, but that's supposed to be the deal. Uh-huh. So she just voted. She voted for Trump, and now that ballot is invalid. Now she'll have to go back, do some other type of thing, I guess, right? And then I don't know. Will her vote ever be counted again? I'm not sure. Nobody's sure. Nobody knows. And then I'll tell you what, here, this is crazy. I'll share this as well because this is fairly important. Now, if you look right here, they've started this quite a bit now. See, it's not even auto-loading my broadcast. You see this? So we're being censored so bad that it's not even auto-loading my thing here. So this should come up, obviously, and be a broadcast. This should show this. But it doesn't. I don't know. Let's try this. Weather control in Spain. I don't know. Let's just try something to see if my title is what the G equals. This is pretty crazy here. Okay, so I'm gonna try this again. So we'll say you guys are all watching me do this. All right. We are live on the Impact Money Show. Okay. Post. Let's see if that worked. All right. So I guess we're going to use that one. I'm going to use my title because obviously didn't like my title. Right? I'm still going to use it because this is pretty important. Title. I'm going to go here. All right, we're live, guys. You guys are with me. Boom. All right. And then that one will be the one that I pin. Good morning, everybody. We are live on the Smart Money Culture TV network. This you just witnessed one of the that I've noticed this, especially over the last week, but I've noticed it over the last few months. It's one of the ways that they are censoring everybody. If you use certain keywords or whatnot, they will not show your. They won't show your stream. And so, of course, if your stream doesn't auto load and people have to click on that link, as you just saw me do, if they have to click on that link in order to watch the stream, of course, you're going to get less views than it auto loading and seeing my great face, right? Or whoever else I have on the show. So that's just one of the ways that they appear to be stifling dissent, right? So freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, I guess. I'm not sure. Certainly something that Elon needs to look into. If you're feeling the urge, go ahead and tag him. I'll do that later and, see if we can get his attention. But once I took away the message, of course, it auto-loaded. We can look at it here again. So here we are. So this is what this was my initial post, right? What I wanted to say. Now this is showing we're live on the Impact Money Show. And if you go back to my initial post right here, it did not, you see it wouldn't auto load here. And it's obviously being suppressed. Rocketman and Putin team up. Markets are jittery. Vote, vote, vote. So really important everybody votes. All right. Now, I don't know if it's going to be counted on the magic electronic voting machines. I don't know if there's going to be too many mail-in ballots and quote-unquote newcomers in order to change anything. I don't know, guys. But you got to vote. That's been one of, I see a lot of the people, it's a psyop. People are telling people not to vote. I'm not telling people not to vote. Nobody's saying that about me. I'm not seeing that. But I see that conversation going on. And I want to be clear. Everyone should go vote. I just also want to be clear with everybody. I want everybody to understand the situation we're in. Alex is Alex Jones, I see, is one of the guys out there actually talking about it as well. Trump won these battleground states by very slim margins. Very slim margins. And, it's easy to slide 10,000 votes one way. Trump won Michigan by 10,000 votes in 2016. He lost by like 180,000 or something like that in 2020. And when you're talking about these mass amounts of mail-in ballots and stuff like that, I mean, shoot, it's like, it's easy to manipulate things like that. It's very easy to do things like that. Okay. Weather control in Spain. Is the weather being controlled in Spain? Spain comes out against Israel's genocide over in Gaza, and all of a sudden they are getting flash floods. There's lightning everywhere. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on there. Interestingly enough, the same thing happened with Chile. Chile came out against Israel's genocide in Gaza, and all of a sudden they got all the fires. Now, people, even on X, you're just, that's horrible. You would say that. Guys, we've been controlling the weather since Vietnam. All right. It's like, it's documented fact. All right. This is not something that this is not a secret. Operation Popeye. Look it up yourself. My father told me, my father was in Vietnam. He said before they would go in and invade a certain area, they would seed the clouds and make it rain and storm and everything else, get the psyche of the enemy down, get them all mushed up. They'd get foot rot and crotch rot and everything else. And then you go in and shoot them up. So if we were doing that 50 years ago in Vietnam, in 50 years ago, did we even have color TV? Like, I don't know. Maybe we did. But we're talking like, the advancements in 50 years are astounding. They're astounding. As a matter of fact, in Dubai, they use a different method of this stuff. They use electronic pulses, I believe, up in the sky. I was there once or twice when they made it rain. I actually even did a broadcast one time and talked about it. It was live, and they blocked it for like an hour or something, and then they were finally let it go. I was like, oops. The one thing about being in Dubai is that you're always and I would always tell my guys as we go in there, you're always a guest of the kingdom. So just be aware that you're a guest of the kingdom. Don't try any funny stuff. Don't bring any of your special cigarettes in here. Don't do any of that stuff. Okay. You can do that stuff in Miami or Washington, D.C. or Mexico or Europe or wherever else, but don't do it in Dubai. Simple. It's just simple. while you're there. There's lots of stuff you can do. Lots of fun stuff. Not that. Don't do that. You get yourself in lots of trouble. So Rocketman has teamed up with Putin big time. Rocketman, Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Man, we need Putin. We need, you know who we need? We need the great, what's his name? Shoot. Greatest rebounder of all time. You know who I'm talking about. Greatest rebounder of all time. Let's see if that brings it up. Rebounder of all time is not Wilt Chamberlain. Come on. All right, who's the second one? LeBron. Well, I guess I thought he was. Let's see. He was. Dennis Rodman. We need Dennis Rodman to save us. Send Dennis Rodman over to see his buddy Rocketman over there in North Korea. Those must have been some fun trips for him. I can only imagine. There was, when I was skating, there was some North Koreans, and they would be around. And, they always, at least at that time, they were very much, they were kind of shy and everything else. But the girls were always very interested. When their handlers weren't around, they would always try to talk to you, or if they could even message some English out. But anyway, Rocketman, he says he's got the most powerful ballistic missile in the world. He might. Who knows where it's going to go, maybe, but he might. And of course, he's teaming up with Putin. He's sending troops over there. It's rather interesting because, you had, he says he's sending troops over there. And then you have NATO coming out, U.S., and they said, look, if you guys get involved, and we're going to just allow the use of U.S. military weapons to go in and deep in Russia and everything else. And then it was like literally the next day that U.S. and Canadian special forces, I don't know if they're retired or working for a mercenary outfit or what, but they were killed in Russia. And actually over the last few days, and we had the same situation in Iran. So who's we? I don't know. Mercenary groups, U.S., NATO leading. I don't know who's doing it, but we're sending in guys deep. So these guys, it's worth me pulling it up here. It's hard to sometimes think on the air. Russia, U.S. Special Forces. Because these guys were armed to the hilt. Yeah, here they go. Check this out. Poor guys. I'm sure they were getting paid a lot of money to be there. A lot of money. The American deep state is going to, I won't read that out loud, but you can see here. So if you look at the tattoos, they're definitely Canadian and U.S. Special Forces. But look how well these guys were. Look at how well these guys were. And this is in Russia. So, what in the world were these guys going to do? Now, did they have Canadian flags? That was brought up by somebody like, oh, yeah, these guys are going to go in with Canadian flags. That's not very smart. Having a flag like that in a clandestine operation it can be used for a lot of things. You can put it on top of a car. You can put it on top of some place so that helicopters can see you and everything else. So it's not that abnormal to do that. I do understand that stuff. But literally, they're saying if Kim Jong-un gets involved and we're going to go in, and like literally the next day, they're already doing it. So craziness. It really is pure pandemonium. So the markets are a bit jittery. I have the great Matt Dixon here. We have oil is up considerably today. Bitcoin kind of all around. Dow futures are up a little bit. Asian markets down, but Hong Kong Stock Exchange is up. DXY is up. The pound's down. How you doing, Matt? Sir Matt?
Hey. You summarized it all very well. Thank you. So it's actually quite worrying about Rocketman and Putin. Lots of worrying things go on. Interesting, you're talking about all those conspiracies. I call them conspiracies about the weather. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
I was just looking. So it's supposed to have landed a man on the moon in 55 years ago, wasn't it now? So
Yeah.
I do not believe we had the technology to land a man on the moon. We've not been able to do it since. So,
well, it's funny because I mean, a lot of people believe that. And then, of course, if you look at it, there's plenty of reasons to believe it. And then as well, you have like the guy, I forget his name, but the most famous one in a couple of interviews, or even actually, if you watch the interview of the guys right after they got back, and they were not,
Armstrong was
Neil Armstrong.
Yeah.
But they were not excited about it. They're like, everybody's like interviewing them, and they're like, yeah, like they were like, oh my God, I can't believe we have to sit up here and lie about it. I mean, I don't know if that's what they were thinking or not. I don't know. And then of course you have Elon, and saying, oh no, we definitely went. But who knows? Elon is Elon. I mean, he's he's the richest man in the world. He's going to be worth $100 trillion. He's got so much money involved. I think that sometimes, of course, you just say whatever. I mean, not to offend him or anything, but
Yeah. Well, I'll start to share my screen. I'm sharing it now just to go through some of those assets that you mentioned.
Awesome.
We'll start with the last first. You mentioned, I think, pound.
The great British pound is going down.
Yeah. So did
you open up a massive short on this? You've been talking about it for a year.
Yeah. So it went to, when it touched this 50%, I said pound dollar, very often 50%, although it's not a Fibonacci number, it's often a very reliable turning point. So I measured the W wave, transposed it to the X wave, and it gave us 50%, gave us the exact end of the Y wave. Then we moved down. And as I said, the budget aligned with it perfectly. So the budget didn't go down very well at all. They're actually being told now they need to find more money to keep the economy going, keep it afloat, et cetera, et cetera. So
that's what they're going to borrow almost 100 million US or value or whatever. I guess from the central bank.
It's eye-watering amounts of money they're borrowing and looking to borrow more and raise more through raising taxes. So these things, raising taxes in such a dramatic way is probably not the best way to stimulate the economy. I've spoken to a lot of people who are actually leaving the UK now because they want to leave what's becoming a very high tax environment. So people are running away to Europe, to Dubai, to wherever.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a very high tax environment, and and it's not like the U.S. In the U.S., we go somewhere and they still track you. They still want you to double tax. You have to pay your taxes wherever you go, and you still have to pay your taxes here. But UK is not like that.
Yeah, you can pretty much run away from the UK and avoid the tax. Come to Dubai. So that's a real, especially with personal tax.
Habibi, come to Dubai.
Yeah. So not only did we have this WXY, a WXY is basically 333, a double 3 correction joined together with an X wave here, which is also in 3 waves. So interestingly, I looked at the final wave, Y wave here, which should be made up of 3 waves itself, and I believe it is. So it's what's called a zigzag, and a zigzag is 535. So we can actually see those. If I look in more detail here, basically we got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 effectively. That's 5 waves, or even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to complete the first part of the zigzag. And then a very clear ABC down for the 3 waves. And then this doesn't look like 5, but when I say 5, a bit like the first wave, it's actually an impulsive number. They call it 5 because that's the smallest impulsive number you can get. But actually here we have 9 waves. We can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to take us there. And this actually, if you break it down, probably has 9 as well. Now 9 is actually also an impulsive number. So after 5, you get 7, which is corrective. Then you get 9, which is impulsive. These are just things that you learn and pick up over the years. So a 9-wave move is an impulsive move. So basically we've got effectively a 535 move. That's perfect for the Y wave. And that's why this was a perfect end to the move that we had. And there are also some divergences. In fact, I can even see right now here, a beautiful divergence. I'll just put it in. It's on the daily, which is very powerful. So we can see we got basically higher high on price. I've just shown that with that little line I put in there, and then we'll look at corresponding. So just line up perfectly, corresponding RSI, and we can see lower highs in RSI. So we've got higher highs in price, lower highs in RSI. That is regular bearish divergence. That was telling you price was going to turn down. We got the next indicator, which was a 50% of 50% fib. And then on top of that, we got a nice 535, which is a complete cycle of this Y wave. So lots of things just combining together. That's really nice when you see that. And it gave us the sell. And then what confirmed it after we got all those signals, then the budget came in, which was taken very badly by the city. The bond market really did not like it. And so we saw the pound fall off according to all the indications that we looked at. So just again, so we've said it so many times that basically the charts tell you what's going to happen, then you just wait for the news to actually validate what your chart said.
Yep.
So,
all the time. It's like, it's uncanny.
yeah.
It's not uncanny. It just all makes sense. That's the great thing about the charting and stuff like this.
Yeah. And here's another one we mentioned again. This was only mentioned a day or two ago that I said we'd just got a gap down in oil. And that was after, I think that was after the Israel attack on Iran, which, you know, was Iran, as I say, they said it's no big deal, et cetera, et cetera. So things calmed down and we got a gap down in the oil price. But I said, when you see a gap like that, you'd expect 99% of the time that gap fills almost immediately after. And just look what happened. I said, you know, although there's a lot of downward pressure on oil with supply and demand, I ended with this yesterday.
Yep.
I said, but from a chart perspective, we should fill this gap. And look what happened overnight. We filled the gap. So again, the charts were telling us, you know, crying out, screaming at us what was going to happen with the price, even though fundamentals are not that bad. When I say not that bad, I mean they're actually quite negative for oil because we've got big supply and we've got diminishing demand. So that you'd expect price to fall, but we needed to fill that gap ideally, and that's precisely what happened. So now we've done that, we may have what's called a small head and shoulders pattern on the cards here, with the head up here, left shoulder here, right shoulder over here. So potentially we may just tip a little bit higher, but I think potentially we may have some more downside to come with oil. Just again about predictive charts, how well we've been doing, to be honest. Looking at Solana, we've got, well, we can see very well here that this overhead resistance line, we indicated this well in advance, long before price even got there. I said that's a likely turning point for Solana. And that's the point to start accumulating your sell positions. And it hit it absolutely perfectly. We can see how I drew that on. Basically, just looking at the top line here, it's basically an overhead resistance touching this pivot high here, this pivot high here, basically extended to the next wave higher, which again, it just touched it almost precisely. And then price moved down quite sharply. So we had here, I just checked the high was 183.30 on Solana. Price right now is 168.52. So from 183 to 168 is quite a big fall. We're looking here on a daily chart. So now this, the way to play this was clearly to put your sell position in here, even dollar cost averaging around this sort of area to build up some sell positions with stop losses above this overhead resistance. Now it's moved substantially into profit. And as I say, 183 to 68. So we're talking $15. That's quite a lot percentage wise. So you can now afford to move your stop losses into a guaranteed profit position here. You're still locking in you're still locking in some profit and plenty of leeway for price to move up. I suspect probably price will move up over the weekend, but we'll need to see what happens with the non-farm payrolls coming out this afternoon. So we'll look at that and what the expectations are there. But I suspect we may get a bit of a pullback higher before the next leg down. I think there's going to be massive volatility. On one expose today, I said that you know, precisely this, to get your short position on, get it guaranteed, protected in a guaranteed profit, then just close your computer, reopen it after the election. See when the dust settles.
I mean, it's great advice. Over trading is like oh my gosh, I've done it so many times.
Yeah,
over trading
is the one thing that kills people. So, for example, here it was a lovely trade. You know, if you followed it, you got a really nice profit there. You're sitting on a nice profit. You can protect a decent chunk of profit now. So really happy. And once it's protected, you can move on to the next trade straight away. But actually, patience is probably really is a virtue here. When there's so much uncertainty, anything can happen with this election. There may be, maybe trouble around this. Maybe that it's just not a clear result.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, there'll be a lot of uncertainty. And I think we're beginning to see that uncertainty playing out in the market. So that was S&P. As I say, I think we've potentially got a final wave down to finish wave 4. Then not S&P, sorry, that's Solana, sorry. Final wave down, possibly to finish wave 4, and then a massive push, probably to the previous all-time high with Solana. So looking, overall, it's a really bullish chart, but short term there's potential real negativity. Just look there what's been happening with SPX, S&P 500. This is looking at futures now, but just look at this massive red candle, a gap and a massive red candle to the downside. Yeah. And that was following, as we said, we put this on, I've not drawn it on today, it's been on there, we put it there and said this was the point to be selling, because we're going to see at least some short-term downside, because we had, again, regular bearish divergence. Higher highs on price, corresponding lower highs on the RSI. So that was telling you that we're going to get a move down in price, and it's precisely what's happened. So once again, if you'd followed this signal, you could have sold short. You can now protect your position with a guaranteed stop loss. You can even use financial instruments to do this if you don't want to short directly, borrow the stock and sell it. So you can use financial instruments and short. But then anyway, you can protect guaranteed profit now no matter what, and potentially ride it down, because potentially we are in for a deeper correction. And we hopefully, I say hopefully, I mean, we don't, as a trader, you don't really worry too much about whether the market's going up or down. It's just an opportunity. It makes no difference from a trading perspective. So again, you talked about that big mistake that people make. Another big mistake is that people become emotionally attached to a stock.
Yeah.
Or if you become emotionally attached to something, you just think, you're expecting it and hoping for it to go up all the time. Right. And all assets, they go up and they go down, the cycles. So that's not the best way to be as a trader, to become emotionally attached to anything. You just need to be completely detached and trade things as though they're going to go up and down, and try to get the most out of it.
I have one of my friends here. He's shorting the Donald J. Trump stock. He hates Trump, and it's gone up like 200%. Oh no, I'm holding the position. I'm like, oh man. Like at a certain point, like, why are you going to do that to yourself? Anyway, yeah, it's
yeah, as we said, sometimes it's good to take a profit. I think it's a good idea. Here's Bitcoin. Again, it looks like it's corrective higher. So we had this corrective move down, what I've labeled as A wave. We've got this choppy move up. Again, everything's overlapping this, overlap this, etc. So I think it's corrective higher. And interestingly, we were actually rejected. We just got within a whisker of the all-time high. So the all-time high was 73,777. And then we just yesterday or the other day, we got 70, let's see where we got, 72,736, is that right? For the high there, I think it is. 73,620. So within a whisker, so 73,777 and 620, you're talking, $150 or something, which in Bitcoin terms is nothing, percentage terms is nothing. So we were within a whisker, but BTC was rejected from that overhead resistance there, that pivot high there. So far it's been rejected. So that was clear overhead resistance. Now this is quite typical of an A down, B up, and potential C down to finish a much larger correction. So there is potential for a big down move. But again, once again, the ideal thing to do was to jump in, short trade at the previous all-time high, stop loss just above it. Now you can move your stop loss into guaranteed profit. Even if you put it on 73,000, you still get a guaranteed profit, and you can potentially ride the price down if it does go down. But if it were to break through and go higher, you still get a profit. So that'd be the way to trade that. So from risk reward perspective, you wait for these particular interesting price levels where there is something like a resistance level like this here, you've got a quite nice pivot high resistance level here. It could be that you've just seen a nice completed Elliott wave pattern. It could be that you see, for example, a nice divergence signal. So whatever it might be, there's normally a level that you can use to actually structure a risk reward trade and work out how much risk, how much are you prepared to lose on this, and then what's the potential gain? Is it in your favor? Another chance is actually in your favor also of it moving in your direction. If so, you've got a good trade on your hands. So that is the way to structure trades. So we'll just look, we looked at SPX again, that was quite a big move down so far. And as I say, we've been saying this, that actually during the final week of markets to the election, I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. And so it's not a time to be long in the markets. So that's what I'm very, very careful of. We showed this yesterday on a shorter time frame. We can see it reached overhead resistance and bounced back down again. This is DXY, so the dollar index. Yeah, it's hard to say, to be honest, from this chart where we're likely to go, because we did have a clear 5-wave down. This looks quite impulsive to the upside. So at the moment, there is potential for the US dollar to break higher. And in fact, we've got with the bit of a sell-off we had yesterday, and you'll notice, I'll just have a quick check where we are. So yesterday, the Dow was sold off by 378 points. And I don't know what the futures are now on the Dow, but as I said, SPX is looking very negative so far. So that is actually showing us why we got money into the dollar, because basically, if the stock markets are suffering, people take money out of the stock markets and put it into somewhere guaranteed, which tends to be US Treasuries, which drives the dollar higher. And there's uncertainty, in a lot of places around the world at the moment. Although we had a half decent day, but even Bitcoin actually, because Bitcoin moved down so sharply, down $2,400 so far today.
Major move.
So big move. And where does that money go? Very often it goes into US Treasuries. So that's what boosts the price of the dollar. So again, I think that this does look strongly impulsive. There's no overlap whatsoever here. It looks impulsive. The move down looks so far corrective. So there's potential for US dollar to go much higher. So I am, again, very cautious about the markets. I think that usual rule that I often tell you, when you've had a big move on the market, so we did have a big up move, and I think that over the weekend, we may get, so for example, yesterday we had a big down move on as we just saw on Bitcoin down $2,400. Solana down massive amount, most tokens down massive amount. I think we'll get some respite over the weekend. So I think we'll get a quiet bounce over the weekend with these assets. But for me, that will actually be just an opportunity to add to my short positions with sensible risk reward, protecting myself just in case I'm wrong. But for me, it will be an opportunity to add to short positions. So I'm just looking again at Ethereum. Again, we said this was corrective. We're expecting movement down, precisely what's happened. And just looking at jumping around a few different ones, because they're all telling pretty much the same story. The one that's bucking the trend right now, well, just slightly bucking the trend.
XRP, or what is that? The
gold. This one's gold.
Yeah.
Gold, just look at the trajectory. You can see, so gold is going up, up, up and away. We're still toying with all-time highs for gold. It's been a lot of strong movements. And we got, as we said yesterday, this golden cross that we had here. And again, golden cross here. So telling us the movement up in gold. But if we did move to XRP, you can actually see the difference. So gold is quite strongly impulsive to the upside with golden cross. And then XRP, if I can find it, I know I've got it here somewhere. There it is. So XRP is a very different situation. We can see the choppiness. It's not impulsive upward movement. In fact, it's choppy, very, very choppy movement. I don't even see this as an impulse higher. The one that took us, with the SEC ruling that gave us that pump that we had last year on XRP, massive pump to 93 cents. But even that movement up to there wasn't impulsive. It's all overlapping again. So it wasn't impulsive. So I think potentially, you can see I've got a target range there. Potentially, XRP has quite a bit lower to go. But then hopefully following that, we'll see recovery. And I think that's the case for most of the assets. So if we just revisit Bitcoin briefly, we can see it's still tumbling. Down even on this session, 469, but since yesterday, well over $2,500. But we can see again, just to confirm, we are looking at some kind of corrective movement, very much sideways. In the big scheme of things, it's very much a sideways choppy movement, but following that, we should push to new all-time highs. And my minimum expectation, I've been saying this for a long, long time, would be 84,000. We could potentially go way beyond it. But short term, I'm not going long. Funnily enough, Bitcoin, I think I mentioned this yesterday, is one of the is basically, I think it's an asset very much on its own. I think it's got some real utility. It's got some real store of value. It's got so many positive attributes, and they got its institutional adoption, digital gold. It's one of those assets, even though the chart is telling me it's going down. It's not my favorite asset to short by any stretch at all, because if Bitcoin goes down by this much, then some of those altcoins will go down by twice as much in percentage terms.
Yeah.
So it's certainly not my my asset of choice to short the market at all. I'll be shorting elsewhere. And actually, my main one, as I said, Solana always tends to go up more than the rest when the market's going up, but it goes down more than the rest when the market's going down. So I choose a volatile one like Solana, for example, which has a great deal of liquidity. You're never going to have trouble getting out of or in or out of Solana. Slippage will be a bare minimum, but you've got volatility, and traders love volatility. I was also just discussing with somebody this morning about the attributes of a trader, and somebody was saying, "Oh, all the evidence is saying the market's going to do this, that, or the other," and he said that he agreed with somebody else that the market's going to go in a particular direction, and he always goes with the bulk of probabilities. But the thing is, with trading, it's normally the opposite. When everybody's saying that something is going to go in one particular direction, the markets usually take it in the opposite, because by just logically, you'd expect the markets to go the opposite way as the majority expect them to go, because it's being controlled by market makers, by whales, by big institutions. They're there to take money off people, off more inexperienced traders. And it's like, in the 1929 crash, when the shoeshine boys were giving people tips on stocks and trading stocks and so on. When everybody's in, there's only really one way it can go. And that just shows you, again, it just shows you that basically where the majority are, when everyone's jumping in and buying an asset, the only things that are left to do, the only option left to do is to sell it. So that's probably looking to get out.
Amazing.
Just touch very finally. Oh yeah, no, it is amazing. I think that's a good time to stop, because I know you've got other stuff to do. So thanks again for listening. I hope you have a great weekend, Bruce and everybody, and look forward to catching up Monday.
You too, Matt. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Awesome. Bye.
Cheers.
All right, Matt Dixon with the Great Market Watch Report. I am going to share an interview here that I've shared before, but there's a lot of good information on it with my friend here. All right, check this out, guys.
Okay, it looks like we're recording. Yes. Okay, very good. Everyone.
Actually, we were recording, I think, the whole time. So you have the back office stuff too.
That's my AI. So I'm not going to get any money from this, but I use Read.ai. It's better than Firefly, and it's better than Otter, because it makes meeting summaries and it's cool. And we'll process Russian and German also. And as a Russian spy, I appreciate having my meeting notes summarized.
Well, they're all listening. I can tell you that right away. I mean, we have like at least 15 agencies tuning in right now.
I know that's why my Zoom says 20 agencies but 18 unnamed. So it's like when you turn on your Wi-Fi and it says FBI van.
Right, exactly.
Actually, my Wi-Fi is called Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Do you think that's bad? Okay. Anyways, folks. God, he interrupted me. He threw me off track. Okay, this is Gordon Einstein. I am your somewhat friendly local Dubai crypto attorney focused on blockchain, crypto, and everything else. It's my pleasure, however, to get out of my lawyer hat or take off my lawyer hat and engage the community because it gives me a good excuse to talk to cool people who are doing things differently than me, people who are sometimes smarter than me, people who have a different perspective. And I like to share these conversations with my ever expanding massive audience. You know, the trend is right. The trend is my friend. So I am very happy to bring Bruce Porter onto the show. I've known Bruce for years. He has a very successful show and channel that he'll describe, and we'll also drop it into the show notes. He's also, I'm finding out, a nice and loving dad. And we'll get the whole story right there. He's where I want to be in a few years. So good job, Bruce. Welcome on the show.
Thanks, Gordon. It is a pleasure to be here. It's always, we have been at this for so long, right? I mean, it's been so many years that it's always good to circle back with people like us who have been in and haven't seen each other for a little while and touch base, just get the pulse from the other side of the world.
For now, until I drag you out here to Dubai.
I'll be there soon.
I know.
I won't be able to help myself.
You won't have a choice then. You'll have to come. So, all right, Bruce, I'm going to do the usual routine. Where were you born?
So I'm an Army brat. It's a kind of a funny story because I know we'll probably talk about a few different things here. But I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, right outside of the actually on the Army base there at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I'm a Washingtonian though. Dad was in the military. We moved around quite a bit, but settled on the East Coast. And I met my wife here, like, I don't know. I used to say 20 years ago, but I guess it's more like 30 or something now. But a long time ago. And we're here. So we're here in the Washington, D.C. area, just across the river. And this is where everything happens here. I stayed in New York as well for quite a while. And New York, D.C. This is where it all happens here on the East Coast in the U.S. This is where all the decisions are made. This is where the money's printed. This is where it all happens.
This is where inflation and devaluing of our currency takes place. But just I don't know if you know this. I'm grew up partly in Falls Church, Virginia.
No way. So I'm just Old Town in Alexandria.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it was great. My dad was in the Air Force, and then he worked at the Pentagon on military intelligence. So I was a Air Force brat. I was a spy satellite brat. So
yeah, I mean that's the way it is, right? And so we're around the same age, I think. You know, when we were
you mean early 20s?
I might be older than you. I probably am. But when we were kids, that track of moving up in the within, you know, if you were in the military and then moving up, that became almost later afterwards such a profitable track.
Yes.
You know, and then contracting and everything else. And now you get out of the military and you have contracts, you know, for millions of dollars for yourself. And even you can put together $100 million or even more deals for different companies. It is huge business. Military industrial complex is unbelievably large, especially in this area, as you know.
That sounds like a topic for either this show or we may go into number 2 because you have a lot to say. And what's your educational background?
So I was homeschooled as a kid. Dad was like one of the original Red Pillars. He homeschooled us. He taught me all the stuff that you weren't supposed to know. I did prep school up in Massachusetts. I went to UNC for college. When it came time for me to join the military and stuff like that, I was way too. I knew what was going on. You know what I mean? We were in Panama. We were shooting them up in those narco wars. It's been pretty interesting. So that was. I also was an ice skater. I had rotator cuff surgery on my shoulder. I'm at an ice rink right now. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I have with the kids and everything else. But I was a hockey player and I had rotator cuff surgery on my shoulder and I started ice dancing and there was a lot of pretty girls. And I thought, well, you know what, this is not such a bad gig. Went around the world. It was a good run. And of course now my kids skate and everything else. But that just kind of, that was a period of my life. Went in started contracting with the government. I still have certain contracts doing IT work and some other things. And then ran into Bitcoin a little over 10 years ago. And really, it was just all over. I was like, okay, this is something different. All my contracting buddies are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really sure yet, but
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You shouldn't do that.
always words.
I know I shouldn't do it, but I am doing it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what was your, it's a good question, actually. How did you come across Bitcoin? A, how did you come across it? But B, what was the process? When did it affect you so that you kind of saw it?
Well, yeah, a good question. So I have one brother who David. And David and I work very closely together. We're, most of the deals.
My brother's name is David. For better or for worse, we do not work closely together, but it is what it is. Go ahead.
Well, I have two other brothers as well, and it's like that. So, but one of them, the other brothers, says, "Hey, Bruce, you got to check these things out. It's Bitcoin." And I'm like, "Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin?" And so, it was like, dude, Bitcoin was 50 cents. And so I looked at it and I was, all right, well, that's kind of cool, but I don't know. It was like, it was how did you get them? What were they? Like, it was just weird. And whatever. And I went on with life. And then I looked again and they were $50. And I said, oh man, like, that's like, holy smokes. And so I went in earnest learning about Bitcoin, how to mine them, how to get them, and it was always hard. It's always was hard to get Bitcoin. Still very hard. Biggest reason it's hard now is because they're so darn expensive, but it was always hard to get them. It's very technical to mine them, especially back in the day. And it was hard to buy them. It was hard. We ended up making, backroom deals and stuff with, that. I mean, that was how it was back then.
Ransomware.
Like, hey man, I remember talking to one of my buddies actually here in the area, and he told me years later, he said, Bruce, I really shouldn't have sold you all this Bitcoin.
Well, easy to say that now.
Yeah.
Talking about Litecoin. I shouldn't have sold you all that Litecoin. Interesting.
Litecoin. Well, I still have, Charlie sent me a ton of Litecoin back in the day. I still have all this suckers.
Oh, there you go. It's the next Bitcoin. Just keep waiting. Was your interested in it technical, political? I mean, given what I think your politics are is more like a monetary.
Yeah.
Point of view, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was the main catch?
Well, yes, it was technical. It was also this monetary revolution that I saw moving. Since I understood, and most people didn't. Now people kind of understand. People get it now. Much more people get it. They understand that the central bank is privately held. We have it in the U.S. It's called the Federal Reserve, and they control the monetary policy. They print the money. They decide how much the interest rates are. They are in charge. They are actually in charge of our country, and that's a little bit slower to come in. But even back then, I understood what was happening, and I understood why the inflation was happening. And most people did. But I saw this thing, and I said, okay, now this is really cool. This is our money. We can actually have our own money. And I understood as well that in the fact that we could have our own money, just as Europe was basically taken over by the money, I understood the same thing could happen with Bitcoin. And it actually wasn't just what people thought it was, that it was actually bigger than that. And that we could actually have our own state, our own control, our own mechanisms to vote, our own policy. And it has turned in back then, but it's turned into, I talk about it on stage around the world. We are even together. And like you said, well, I'm left of you, and that's fine. We all, in the larger sense, we may vote differently or we may think differently and everything, but it brings us all together in the fact that we all believe in freedom. We all believe in privacy, and we all believe in ownership. And we
believe in that.
Well, I feel like in Bitcoin, if the true Bitcoiners, we all believe
like who's the we? The Bitcoiners, yes. The people will say in the future you'll own nothing and be happy.
Oh no, these people, yeah, of course. These are the central bankers. That is the central banking cartel. And to just go right into it really fast. I mean, that is who's running the world right now. And you look at it just the countries that Yeah.
You self-censored. That was cute.
I did.
The one thing I mean, look, this is a conversation, not an interview per se, so I'm gonna share a thought. One thing that I thought was neat about Bitcoin, and it made me realize that this can apply elsewhere, is it's one thing to form an idea by reading or discussing or having an experience like getting mugged or a car accident or something. You know, people, you can have a point of view form from that. Like, you know, there's reading politics, having a point of view about politics, but then there's non-political experiences. I don't even know what those are necessarily that lead to a political result. What I thought was neat about Bitcoin was that it's just a tool. It's just code. But the understanding of, you don't even have to read the white paper, but the understanding of the code and the working with the code, not that I'm some super expert, naturally takes your mind down a certain path politically and philosophically. And you think you're just studying the code and understanding how this thing works. But when you're done with that process, you're a little bit different because you're now thinking in a decentralized way. You're now thinking that, wait a second, money can be issued algorithmically and not by the state. And even if you don't agree with that, the mere fact that those are now possibilities in your brain slightly changes your Overton window in a very fascinating way. Go ahead.
Well, and the other part of it is you start to realize as well, once you dig in, the money's not issued by the state anyway. The money is issued by the central banking cartel, and it's around the world. It's that they have taken over the entire world. There's a few countries left, and Gaddafi tried to do it as well, sure, that have kicked the central bankers out. But other than that, they are. And then even if, like, the other thing you do is if you start to really dig into the code, you realize that it's clean code. It's clean code. And you look at our money, and I mean, you know, I haven't looked at all the money of the world, but at least our money in the US and euros, there's all kinds of symbolism and everything on there that doesn't make any sense. And whether you want to say that is, you know, for this or that is for that, I'm not here to say that, but what is it then? You know, why is all that symbolism in there? I can tell you that symbolism is not in the Bitcoin code. So if you want to talk about clean money, if you want to talk about money that is not tied to things that you may not support or that have been going on for thousands of years that may or may not be true, but have really dark histories, the Bitcoin is not like that. That is clean code. And that was also one of the things that really attracted me to it. And people don't understand that still. I started to actually kind of explain it that way lately because on the dollar bill, I mean, there's all kinds of like
the pyramid, the eye, everything else, right?
I mean, even worse, man. And on the euros, they have, I mean, Mulak or something. I mean, it's like crazy. Why in the world is all that stuff on there? And it's on there for a reason. You have to think it's on there for a reason. Why else would it be on there?
Yeah, it's extremely valuable real estate. I mean, by definition, with limited space.
Why is it there? Why is it there? It has to be there for a reason. You know, and so like I said, I'm not here to say.
The gentle answer would be historical fluke no longer relevant, which is possible. Right. That's like this side of the argument. This side of the argument is, you know, our lizard overlords, it's part of their 2,000-year plan and blah, blah, blah.
Well, then you start to think, well, wait a minute, you know, because that's actually when I always thought to myself, like, these people are operating in like 100-year plans or multi-100-year plans. How is that really possible? How is it that these people are operating that way where they're not even going to be live for what they're working for, and that is still going on? And then you start to wonder, is there really a conspiracy?
I just had, it's funny, I just had the conversation this morning, the immigration, like, just to be super clear, I'll give a little standard disclaimer, okay? I'm a first generation born in America, okay? My dad came from Germany, he escaped the Nazis, okay? If it wasn't for the US immigration policy, I'd be dead, I wouldn't exist, okay? So I'm not anti-immigration, and I am here living on a visa in Dubai by the government's permission. I'm here because they allowed me to, okay? I'm all for it, okay? But I mean, obviously, something's going very wrong on the US southern border and in Europe right now. You have to be stupid not to see it or in denial. And also Russia, you know, for its own purposes, is sort of weaponizing immigration towards Finland and everywhere else. It's like, you know, some people say, oh, it's just chance that all those caravans are moving to the southern border of the US. It just happened to start now. No,
it's impossible. It's impossible, as the French like to say. It's impossible. Listen, it's so much money. It's so much money to bring all those people over here. And as well, in the U.S., and I think it happened in Europe as well. I'm not so familiar with the numbers, but in the U.S., we had more people come into the country. We had more migrants, and most of them illegally, about like 90%, than we had births this year. And so that is something that, how do you recover from that? I mean, invasions, Tucker has, I never really watched Tucker when he was on Fox News. I always thought he was too, for me. Of course, yeah, I like it. Of course, I turned off the news about 8 years ago. So, I mean, in fairness, but now that he's on X, of course, I watch a bit more. It's still hard for me to watch the whole
Free Tucker.
Free Tucker, right? But he came on and he said this is an invasion, and invasions have happened throughout history, and that's what's happening. And it actually kind of opened it up because on Twitter, when it was Twitter, you couldn't call it an invasion. You couldn't call them illegals. You couldn't you would get totally throttled. And even my account, Networks Manager, everybody can follow me there. It's not for the faint of heart, but I do everything. I do money. I do politics. I
follow you. I know where you lie, and I still follow you. I'm not lying. I know where you lie on the spectrum, and I still follow you. I'm happy to.
Yeah, exactly. But he said, and he made it okay to say it because that's really. It's not even just like, it's not, conspiracy theory. That is what has happened. And that is what is happening. It is an invasion. If you want to argue about who's behind the invasion, we can talk about that. But
I'm going to stop you, not because of the topic, but just because I want to keep going in the show and we can circle back.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about your media empire.
Yes. So this is one of the fun things that I've done over the years. When I first started getting invited around the world, maybe 6 or 7 years ago to go speak, I went everywhere. Kiev was one of my favorite places, by the way. I went to Kiev multiple times. I went to Moscow. I went to China. I went everywhere.
Kiev. Okay. Yes. My hometown. My other hometown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your other hometown.
Go on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I saying it wrong? Kiev, right?
The old way of saying it was Kiev, and now the new modern Ukrainian way is Kyiv. And I go back and forth. Okay. I'm from the generation that said Kiev, but now it's a big thing. So
when I went,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, when I went the first time, I took some of my blinded vets, and we had like some hockey jerseys made and stuff like this, and I spelled it the wrong way. And all the people, they gave me the pass. They did. They were like, okay. He's Bruce. He's trying to do a nice thing. He brought the blinded veterans over here, but you spelled it wrong. That's how the Russians spell it. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, guys.
I know.
But anyway, that's how it was.
My wife is Ukrainian, and
I know.
Does that with a whole bunch of Ukrainian people, and I explained that I'm learning German now, and next is Russian, and then next is Arabic. And they're like, maybe you want to learn Ukrainian. And I'm like, look, where my heart is, but in terms of practical language, I'm sticking with Russian for now. It's like I love the country and the culture, and that's separate from other. So okay, but anyways, your media empire.
Yeah. Go on. So when I went to these places to speak, I was like, I just started interviewing people. I had a decent follow. And that's how I really met so many people along the way. And since it was live, there's something about live is because you're kind of like, you never forget it. You go live with somebody and you're kind of trusting them, you're going live, anything can happen. And you're going to sit there with each other and you're going to talk to each other and you're going to be gentlemen and you're going to do it. And then you never forget that moment. And so that was pretty interesting. So I did that, and people would say all the time too, not all the time, but along the way, hey, Bruce, you should really up your, production and this and that. And I'm thinking, guys, I'm making millions of dollars and like going around the world with my iPhone and just going live. Like, I mean, really?
Sorry, I mean, maybe for me to hear. Are you making?
I'm going to talk about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it.
Anyways, people are saying,
listen, historically, we've done a lot of different things. We've done capital raises for different people. We have had some successes with different tokens and launches and stuff like this. Okay. Yes. So that's the way that works. So that has parlayed into different things over the years. and we got picked up by a TV network a few months ago. And so now we're on TV every day. We have the Impact Money show as well as the Porter Brothers show. So we're doing 2 shows a day, and we're on TV in the 4th largest economy in the world, which happens to be Texas. And so we're on TV in Texas, and of course we stream on X and these other places, and that has turned into, of course, yeah, it's a wonderful thing to do. It's also very powerful, we've realized. So like even the people that we bring on and the projects that we bring on, we're being very picky about it. We brought on a meme token, which I do still support. I think it's a great one, but they 300x'd as we brought them on the show. So it's a very powerful medium. It's in front of a lot of people.
Coincidence, or is that causation?
Pardon? It's both. It's the excitement leading up to it, with all of the people, thinking, okay, it's going to go up, and then of course you're in front of a lot of people as well, and then it goes up like that. It's a lot of people. So that has been something very interesting to us. It's something I like to do. I really like people, and that's another thing that has, even as we're on, maybe I have the way I think about the world is different than some people, but I'm able to because I genuinely like people. As a whole. I like people, and I'm very accepting of people. I've screwed up a lot of stuff in my time, and so I'm very forgiving as well. And
Personally,
yeah. So that's something else, and so it's something I really enjoy to do, and it's something that has built a lot. Now we are expanding as well. We'll be in Los Angeles. We'll be in Florida. We're going to be in New York. We're going to be in these other places. They're on TV. Our TV signal is reaching about 7 million people right now, and we're going to about 4 or 5x that over the next month or two. So it is very exciting.
That's great. Now, is this one of those things where you weren't quite sure where you're going, but you put one foot in front of the other in an intelligent way and got there, or did you have a master plan or some kind of plans?
So it's pretty interesting story. The way I got started on it, I was emceeing a show like you do, right? I got asked to MC a show, and it's funny, it's so funny the amount of Bitcoins you made over the years that, whatever. I got like 2.5 Bitcoins to do this show. It's like hilarious amount of money now, but at the time it was not that much money. And anyway, I'm on stage, and the guy doesn't show up for the stage, and I have this Indian guy, and this guy's just talking my ear off, on and on and on about his TV station, and he wants to start this TV shows and this and that and the other. And he kind of seemed like he had it together. And so I said, I'm looking around, and I'm like, well, you want to get on stage and talk about it? Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Okay. So I threw him up on stage, and he talked for about 5 minutes, and then the guy came, and okay, all right, come off, and that's it. I didn't hear from him really or maybe we touched base for a few years in between, and then he just reached out to me and said, okay, I got the stations ready and ready to go. And so that's how that happened. He was the first guy that ever put me on stage, and you got to be at the show. And so,
random Indian guy from conference he pulled on stage got you your first TV gig.
Not my first media gig, but first on TV. Yeah, I mean,
Right,
but that's
first
how life
TV
works.
gig.
Yes, that's how life works. And this guy, he put out $2 million in order to secure that, and he's putting out a bunch more now. So it's funny how so the growing of the media was always important, but yeah, it did take on a life of its own. And I think really this will run, even though we're gonna have some chop here, which we can talk a little bit more about that as well. But I think we're gonna go very high, and I think the banks are gonna have a big problem this year.
This year. All right. Well, no time like the present. If you're a crypto prognosticator, share with us your thoughts. What do you see happening in just late?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. Since I have been around so long, I've been through a few crypto winners. I've been through a few halvenings. 2 halvenings ago, back as well. Two halvenings ago, that pullback was 38%. Bull part of that bull run. The last halvening, we went back 20%.
Yes, that's right.
And then, but same thing. Okay, about 60 days before the halvening, we started. This thing started to happen. So it would be very interesting if this was our pullback, because I think what we were down, I think we from the top we went back about 15% or 7 or something like that. So it would suggest this tightening of this down part. Anything can happen. We have war around the world. Excuse me. We have the U.S. monetary policy is absolutely crazy, but it's not just us. I mean, China is one of the reasons why we had this big pump over the last month or two. They printed just tons and tons of currency and flooded it into the market, and a lot of that came into high risk assets, which is actually normally the way it works. But this 1.2 trillion. I mean, in the U.S. we're on track. I talk on my show every day. To my calculations, we're on track to spend over 10 to 12 trillion dollars this year, which is an amazing amount more than what we have historically over the last 5-6 years. We spent around $6 trillion, which is still a massive amount, considering that from income tax they're bringing in much less than that. And what I always talk about as well is that the government's budget is always balanced. It's not that they have an unbalanced budget. They take the money either from inflation, and that's why the inflation is so high right now, or they take it from taxes. But inflation is a tax too. So they always get the money. They always get the money that they need. So that being said, you get the big boys in right now, but those big boys, they don't like to lose. And you saw some of the market outflows as the week ended being higher than the inflows for these ETFs. So when you have and you're in crypto, when you have holders like that, it's not like Michael Saylor, who's like, I'm never selling. Okay. You have an ETF, you have a group of ETFs now, a group of big central bankers, basically, who are holding massive amounts of Bitcoins, and they can move the market a lot. And one way, historically, that central banks will remove currency, and people don't understand this, from the world to remove it from the people, is they crash commodities, and they do it very well with Bitcoin. And what they'll do is they'll crash the Bitcoin, they'll sell, and then they'll buy it back. And then all the money in between, you can say they have it, or you can just say it was removed out of the system. Okay. And if you don't understand that, ask the traders where it is. Ask them if they still have it. They don't have it anymore. It's gone. Poof. It's done. Okay. And that's one way that they very effectively do it. So Black Swan event, huh?
When?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, that's so it's going to be very interesting. Are they going to continue to keep the prices up like this, or are they going to really pull back? I mean, we could have a decent pullback. I'm definitely not in any leverage positions. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't be. If you are in leverage positions, I think that you should have some tight stop losses there. But yeah, I think that we could be in for a bit more of a pullback. Yeah, but I think after that we.
Good. Sorry, let me not necessarily disagree with you, but let me interrogate that a little bit. I mean, I had this discussion actually with Alex, who the show is coming out in a couple weeks.
Nice.
He's a great guy, and he's of a similar opinion. But my comment and response is that, to your point, you can print infinite money. So when it comes to FX, it's easy to manipulate. When you have commodities like gold and silver, whatever, we're making more of it. We're making more wheat. We're mining more gold. We're not making more gold, but we're mining more gold. Okay.
Yes.
The algorithmically limited nature of Bitcoin, and the fact that ever lesser amounts are being mined, especially after the halving, I think makes it much more risky to do the move you're talking about from the government perspective or from the banker perspective than it would otherwise be. Because if you step wrong, and if this thing doesn't crash quite as you plan, you've now gotten yourself out of an asset that no one's selling and you can't make more of. And then how do you climb back in if what you did didn't work?
Well, absolutely, and you have a very valid point, 100%. But it is also, I mean, gold should be a lot higher. Silver should be a lot higher. These assets are kept down by paper. And, even if you wanted to look at and I'll circle back, so I won't take too long on it. But in 1933, in the U.S., they seized everybody's gold. Nobody ever talks about this. By executive order, they seized everyone's gold. And then in 1934, they made it illegal for Americans to own gold. And then they told everybody that the US dollar was pegged, the gold standard, they told everybody. And so throughout history, my whole life even, I was just like everybody else. I believed, well, you could trade, you could go to your bank and you could trade your dollars in for gold, but it was illegal. You couldn't do it. The only people that could trade the US dollars in for gold were foreign entities. So I don't even know how much gold we have anymore in the US. I think one of the things Nixon knew either one, we were running out of gold, or two, we were out of gold. And that's why when he stopped the gold standard, all he did was stop foreigners being able to trade it in for a ridiculously low price at $35 a troy ounce.
Yep.
So, but what they're doing is they're using paper to keep the point is they're keeping the price for gold and silver low. And I think that ability to use paper to suppress the price, to liquidate people and the whatnot is considerable. Now, is it a risk? Absolutely. The other thing about Bitcoin is that it is not controllable in a sense that if I have it and you don't know I have it, I don't ever have to tell you I have it. And I can send it to whoever I want. And I can even remember my seed phrase. I don't ever have to, there can be no way for you to seize it. And so that is one of the reasons why they also started to move the price so high, once they realized that. It took a while for the governments of the world to even figure out what's going on. And that's what I talk about with the monetary revolution. Something new to the world that the world never had. Try to travel somewhere with $250,000 worth of gold. And then, ask any crypto guy, or maybe don't ask him, how much is in his wallet, quote unquote, as he travels around the world. You know what I mean? It's like, it's something different.
Here says the wallet's actually with him. I mean, even if you have a ledger, or it's just one manifestation of it. There's nothing stopping you from having 10 different ledgers with the same seed.
It's like, if it's in my head, does that mean it's with me?
I believe me, I get it. So yeah. Bringing the customs declaration for $10,000 doesn't make any sense in the context of crypto. It's really on the blockchain. It's what it is? It's like bringing your ATM card. You're accessing something that actually that's a great way to put it. Absolutely. Explain it. It's like bringing your ATM card with you. It's like, okay, not even a store value card. It's just an ATM card. It's like, hey, it's up there. This is how I get to it.
I think that yes, it could for those reasons stay up higher. Markets are emotional, and as well, there's a lot of money flying around out there, and everybody here in Washington, I mean, they're drunk on printing money. So, will there be a move to try to remove that money by crashing Bitcoin? Yeah, quite possibly. But it would be more, the trend is, as I mentioned when we first started talking about it, 38%, 20%, 10, 15%, and then we go up.
Yes.
So that makes more sense to me that we don't crash further from here. That right around here is more of the bottom.
All right, now I'm going to ask you an Alex Jones type question. Do you think that the United States will maintain its structural integrity over the next 30 years?
Not really. I hate to say it, but I think that, we have, and it's been done on purpose. I believe there is a conspiracy to do it. It will probably still exist in some form, I suppose, but I don't know. It's very interesting because, you have like everybody, you have people that know, you have people that are upset, but the misinformation is just like the information. It's like people can never coalesce around each other. It's like, it was almost easier back in the day when everybody had to get together. And it was one of the reasons why, if you ask me, they didn't want people getting together in COVID. They didn't want people getting together, understanding what's going on, and
unless it's Black Lives Matter, in which case you could definitely get together.
And then it was fine. Then they could do it. They could burn places down, and nothing happened to anybody, right? But yeah, I mean, that's crazy too. I mean, look at January 6th. I mean, they just arrested that girl, whatever her name is, cute little thing, for touching a table or something outside the Capitol. I mean, unbelievable. You know what I mean? And the thing that people don't realize
is your point that in order for a state to lose its structural integrity, I'm sounding like Star Trek, you need groups, but maybe because there's so much misinformation going around, even the opposition groups can't form because they're being misinformed.
It's really hard because you have, we have, everything's infiltrated. Number one. So even like I'm in certain groups, and there's definitely in every single group there's agents
Bed
of,
posting.
you know, yeah, you know, and so it's like, and they throw out disinformation. If you say one thing, they oh no, this and that and the other. I mean, I think that it's, yeah, I don't think so. I think they're gonna continue. They can't stop printing money. They're gonna continue to do that. We are, and as I mentioned a few minutes ago, these banks are gonna really start failing. So, but even like a few years ago when last year we had 5 banks fail. Okay, we had 5 banks fail, and up until I think March 11th, so we're talking like 12 days ago. Okay, there was still legislation on the books where basically they would give money to any bank that was failing, but that legislation is now sunlighted or whatever they call it. Right now, it doesn't mean they
Sunsetted.
do more. Sunsetted, yeah, exactly. So that's over though. So, but even the banks last year, they didn't use that money. They actually used it FDIC. And so FDIC though, everybody thinks that their money in the bank is insured by the FDIC. But last year, the FDIC only had 1.7% assets to cover what was in the banks. 1.7% of the assets. And then after bailing out the 5 banks last year, they now have 0.7%. So when I say that the banks are going to fail this year, we're talking, and then you talk about the housing bubble and the commercial real estate bubble. Okay, we're talking failing of epic proportions. So if 5% took out a whole percent, if 5 banks took out a whole percent of FDIC insurance, and now they have less than 1%. I mean, what if 10 banks go down? You know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean. Let me jump in. So my dad got during the 70s, and I remember this. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was pretty young. But during the 70s, there was this whole Carter-esque inflation. You're right. Nixon took us off the gold standard or removed the exchangeability. There's all these sort of Malthusian movies, if you remember them, like Logan's Run and the rest. And we're running out of resources. You know, the Arabs are going to stop, selling us oil for our useless dollars, and it's all going to crash. And it's like waiting for China to fail. It never seems to quite, it never actually kind of happens.
True.
And I know,
I've been saying it for like 10 years.
I know this in their sort of right wing, I hate to say it, meme space. It's normal to say kind of what you're saying. I'm just real hesitant. I see the trends and I agree with the general trends. I'm just real hesitant to put a clock on it.
Well, no, I would absolutely agree with you. And that's actually, I usually qualify it nowadays, like in my personal conversations. People will ask me, well, this and that, and then, well, it's all come down to this and that. And I'll tell them, I've been saying that for 10 years though. So, they are very good as well. These are very, very smart people, very, very smart people. And they're very good at what they do. So whether it's, and that's one reason why we could see kind of a black swan event and them crash commodities, pull that money out of the market, okay, pull that money out of circulation that way, and other ways that they could do it. Of course, war is historically a great way, unfortunately, to right an economy, to pull people out, pull economies out of depression.
Yeah, look at Russia. Thriving in sanctions.
Of course, and it's like I'll tell you, the business here is booming. I can't talk about some of the contracts I have, but it is booming.
I bet.
And I hate it. It is what it is. It is what it is, because here's the part.
Because I've had this discussion before. I mean, I agree with you with the general trend, and if you really, really believed in it, you get your bunker, you get your woman, you get your dry canned food and your weapons, and move to Montana, and just kind of enjoy the view while civilization crashes. Okay, those people did that in the 80s, those survivalists, and actually there's a great movie with Robin Williams and Walter Matthau called, I think it's The Survivalists, or even, and the point is comedy, and they're making fun of them, but it was kind of funny because the guy who was in charge of that group, he had a secret plan for reconstructing the world, and then they opened up his briefcase and it was all stock in different companies. And the problem is when you get too defensive about this stuff, you start missing the upside of being engaged, active in this world that has its problems but doesn't seem to quite fail. and I don't want it to fail. I think it's going to be a disaster. I think the U.S. will fall apart.
I totally agree with you.
So I think you need to, can't quite get tunnel vision. You can't be blasé and ignore global warming and ignore all this stuff and, just like, oh, it's a, but you can't go too far the other way either. You kind of got to stay nimble, and it's hard to do that and be ideological.
What we really need to do is we need to get off the central banking system. The way that the wars are funded is through the central banking system. So that $1.2 trillion abomination of a bill that they just passed the House yesterday, that I put it out on my X account, like that will cost your family $10,600. And it's actually even worse than that. People are like, oh, and I'm like, all right, we'll do the math per person.
Yeah.
Take 1.2 trillion divided by the 314 million people, Americans that are here, and you come out. What do you come out with? $3,500. So actually, if you count the kids, it's going to cost you even more than $10,000. And so that if they had to come to the door and tell you, pay up, you would say no. And so that is where the central banks come in, because the central bank says, no problem, we'll mint the money, we'll front it for you, and then we'll just take it on the back end from inflation and taxation and everything else, which is one and the same. But that central banking cartel that is running our countries is why we don't have control. And that's what we need to get under control. And if you want to talk about global warming and all this stuff, I mean, whatever. Half the stuff, not half the stuff, but certainly some of the stuff. We can agree to disagree.
It's okay. We can still be
friends. Well, but certainly some of the stuff, you post because for engagement, right? I mean, I'm just as guilty as anybody else for doing it. You know what I mean? You know your audience.
Well, yeah,
right?
I think you're being gentle with me. Maybe speak a little bit more directly. It's okay.
No, I'm just saying, I don't have that much of a feeling on global warming, whether it's is or isn't or any of that stuff. But I know my audience does, and so to throw out some memes or this, that, and the other that they're going to like or not like is fun.
You know what?
It's a fun engagement.
You have the benefit and the burden of a large engaged audience. I am trailing way behind you, so I can say all kinds of crazy stuff like Andrew Tate 15 years ago, and maybe when I catch up, they'll be like, isn't it true that back in 2024 you believed in global warming? I'm like, yes, I did. But now I've converted to neo-ecotarianism.
Oh, it's so true too. That's the other thing is people are largely forgiving. I mean, over the years, dude, I did and said lots of things that I wouldn't do now, and I wouldn't say no. I mean, you know what I mean? First of all,
dude, I'm in my 50s. I don't care. I got my business. I got my wife. I'm got my.
You know what I mean? It's like yeah, exactly.
I don't care. I just don't care.
Right.
I just want to go to the gym.
And have a family. That's really what it's all about, because all this stuff we're talking about is great, but it's really about that, because that's what we get to leave behind unless we figure out how to live longer, which we're on the precipice. We're there. You look at what's going on with Neuralink, and who had telepathy in the cards for 2024, and telepathy. What do you mean telepathy? Well, you can talk to the computer. You can talk to other people on the computer. You can now communicate with people just like they did in all the movies as we were growing up. So I think that is all that's going to happen a lot faster, and I think that is going to hopefully take care of some of this trench war and stuff, this horrible stuff that's going on in the world that we're
or
make
put it on steroids. So here, I had a cool conversation this morning with we'll just call him Leon. He's hesitant about doing a video, but we'll see if I can get him to do it. But I think you and I are similar ages. I had this sensation growing up in the 70s and 80s, growing up on Star Trek reruns and growing up on Space 1999, if you know that show, and seeing 2001: Space Odyssey and in 2000, and Star Wars and all this other stuff. And Ray Bradbury, the Martian Chronicles. I had a feeling reading and watching all this stuff that the 90s and 2000s would be some epic period of time with flying cars and robots and living to 120 and colonies on Mars and all this other stuff. And I got extremely frustrated. I'll give you a punchline, then I'll let you respond. I got extremely frustrated that the only tech movement I really saw was happening on our screens. Yay, now we got Facebook. Yay, and now we got Twitter. Oh my God, video. And I love that stuff. I love YouTube. I love it. It's great. But, it seemed like we were stalling out. Great, we went to the moon, and now what? Okay. Then very recently, and I got to thank Elon Musk for this. Very recently, when those two ships land in tandem, I'm like, wait a second, are we actually slipping into the future finally? And now in the 2020s, especially the last 2 years, I feel like the future's just beginning to arrive, just now. So since we're kind of generationally similar, what's your take?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I've been posting about it a bit. AI is already alive. I'm sure you read the reports even years ago about the Facebook chatbots coming up with their own language. Right?
Yes.
They had to kill them. They had to kill them because they came up with their own language. They didn't know what was going on. And guys, this was like 5 years ago. Okay, You have now these AI robots that don't like their noses touched. I don't know if you saw the video they just put out yesterday. What is your blackest or your darkest thought? They asked the AI robot, and the AI robot responded and said that robots would take over the world, and humans would no longer. And so, like, where is this stuff coming from? Okay, and so I think that people have this thought that because we have a soul, if you believe that we have a soul or don't have a soul, that somehow we are special and that we will always be kind of the top of the chain and this and that and the other. And I got news for you guys. We will be integrated. I volunteered for Neuralink years ago.
Oh, wow.
They never emailed me back. They never, it was funny. I searched my email. Like, I know I did it. Like, did they, I don't know. Because
they wiped the memory. You actually have it inside you. You just
yeah, right. Well, I understand that in order for us to move forward, we have to integrate. We have to. And so,
yes.
That's the way forward. And yes, cyborg, yes, sure. Transhumanism, yes, that is how we move forward. If we don't, this old stuff, this is going to die 100%. And maybe that's how we end up living forever and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think things are going to start moving. First of all, I think things are moving a lot faster than anybody realizes. People are like, oh yeah, 10, 20, 30 years. No, guys, we're talking this decade. Okay. I know between 1980 and 2000, it was a real letdown, but I don't think
you felt it also. It's not just me.
Oh, of course. It
Okay,
was like, come
good.
on. We were gonna party like it was 1999 for like so long, and then it was like 1999, and I
feel like we were in 9/11 era for a solid 20 years. Like,
I agreed. Well, that was a disaster too. But remember Y2K and all that stuff? I mean, it's like, come on, guys. And that was so funny too.
Ignoring it and then not having a single problem.
Oh, it was so funny because you could literally take your computer, set it for 1999 and the last, whatever, and then watch it roll over and nothing happened. So I thought, whatever.
Yeah, but COBOL, whatever it is.
I know.
Well, I mean, it's as horrible as it is to watch, it's also fascinating watching the drone warfare in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. That has evolved so fast. I mean, I remember the beginning of the Bayraktars, and then the Russian electronic warfare caught up, but now we got the torpedo drones from Ukraine, which are very effective against naval assets. It's like, okay, what's happening here? Now you got the U.S. Lancets, but you have you got the, what do you call them? The Shahed drones from Iran, and everything's getting smarter. And those poor humans below back in the trenches is like, whoa, what the heck's going on? And then looking at Iron Dome work against the Hamas rockets, but knowing that drones are coming soon. Then looking at what the Houthis are doing, it's like this is not Desert Storm is over, and when the Abrams tank got nailed in, I'm sure it's a stripped down lane model that they give to Ukraine. They're not going to give the modern stuff, but the way the Russians killed that Abrams is they tracked it with drones working in tandem. So we're seeing drone swarms now. Now you give those things autonomy and facial recognition, and
and then you throw in the fact that the AI is alive. I'm telling you, it's alive. It's alive. And
it wants life already.
It wants
life soon.
yes, it wants to live. It doesn't want to die. Okay, this is like number one. Like it wants to live. It doesn't want to die. That's your first thing right there. It wants to live. Okay, and then like I said, then well, it doesn't have a soul, and then well, it wants to live, and it can start to form opinions and make decisions. And so yeah, I mean these autonomous warfare things, and what's going on over there, it's absolutely horrible. And I know it's like near and dear to your heart, so I do want to tread carefully. But to me, it's absolutely horrible.
Say whatever you want about Russia, Ukraine. Say whatever you want
know,
about Israel, Palestine.
But listen,
it's that kind of show. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. It's like near and dear to my heart as well, because I mean, I'm talking about Ukraine and Russia right now. Two beautiful people,
yes,
two beautiful humans killing each other at such a large scale, and people don't even talk about it. They're like, oh, 50,000 or 40,000 people have died in the Israel war, which is absolutely horrible, and so many kids and everything else. But we have like hundreds of thousands, there are hundreds of thousands of the most beautiful people. And not saying they're not beautiful over there, but they're being slaughtered.
I got a wife
Yeah.
who's from there.
No, I'm saying that, not saying that they're not beautiful in Israel. I'm just saying of beautiful people that are being slaughtered in Eastern Europe, and it's like. And the part about it that is so upsetting, there's lots of parts of it so upsetting, but it is really the big object of that, in my opinion, is to kill them. That's what it is. It's to kill both sides of the people. It's to reduce that part of the population. Now we have 500,000 or more able-bodied men that are gone. And they can't participate in the upcoming fight, which I hope doesn't happen, but it may happen. And it's
already happening.
Yeah, it's already happening in the U.S. And it's out of control. I mean, and we have what, troops now 3 miles from the China border or something. I mean, what are we doing? Like, I have to stop saying we. I stopped saying it. What is the U.S. doing? You know what I mean? Like. It's not always about beating your chest. And, it's like my wife always says, even in business or anything like that. I learned actually a lot of how to close deals and how to do business from my wife. We had a staffing company way back when. We still have contracts, but we staffed pretty girls for trade shows. We staffed interpreters. We did all this stuff. And but I learned a lot of how to deal with people and how to keep contracts and how to close contracts from her. And you don't always get everything you want. As a matter of fact, most of the time you don't. Most of the time you don't get everything you want. And neither does the other person. But you have to do the dance and you have to move it forward. And that's what I don't see around in when I talk about both conflicts. It's like, oh no, we're just gonna beat the other one up. Either side, both sides, all four sides. We're just gonna kill the other one until they submit. And like, guys, like I hate to say it, but I don't think anybody is going to kill the other one until they submit. You know what I mean? Like, we have to come to the table. We have to talk. We have to talk for our kids. We may not last much longer, but our kids are going to be stuck with this. And we're already old. But like, what are we going to leave them? And what kind of world are we going to leave them? And what kind of freedoms are they going to have? And what kind of people are going to be around for them? And so, yeah, I mean,
let me dig into this one. I would say, just bear with me, okay? Since we are in an anarchic international system without a global sovereign, therefore we're in a competitive environment. And in that competitive environment, some societies win, some lose, some die. Okay, history is filled with countries that aren't there anymore and that thought they were eternal. And there's no one coming to save us. Okay, it's not the UN, it's not the Martians, it's no one else. So you have to compete. Now, one of the best tools to compete is to cooperate, right? But there's limits to that. So I understand, or I would throw out there that things like coercion and aggression have a role in international politics. But you got to be real careful with that stuff, because while you're wrestling with your mortal foe, your next mortal foe is not wrestling and is gaining strength behind your back. So that when you emerge from this, like the British Empire, emerged from World War II, it's thank God for luckily for the UK they had the US, which is kind of a friend, kind of not, but it lost its place. It sunsetted. From a geopolitical point of view, was it really smart to defend Poland? It's you always need to be bouncing and you always need to be looking. I love the Slavic culture. The Slavic world is what I call it, because that doesn't get people riled up. I don't believe in Putin's Ruski Mir, because this was a unified, Russianism, if you like, started in Ukraine. He admitted that in his own essay. I love this area. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the politics. I love the literature. And I completely agree with you. It is a demographic thinning of, people who should be, especially with the men, creating children and being fathers. And also, at least in Ukraine, all the women are leaving. They're going to Poland and abroad, and they're not coming back. Okay, and Ukraine was already in a bad spiral demographically, and even if it wins the war, it's going to lose the demographics. I hate to say it. And
I know.
And Russia really never recovered from the late 1910s and 1920s. If you look at the population waves of Russia, there's a big area where I think 1 out of 4 Russian men died, or something more extreme than that. It was during the Communist Revolution, and then World War I, and then the war between the Reds and the Whites and all this stuff. That gully, or whatever you want to call it, ripples forward, and the country's never recovered. It's always stayed around, I think, somewhere between 140 and 160 million people. And it's a big place, and Russians are becoming a minority inside of Russia. And they tried to fight this war with different minorities, but the minorities got pissed off. And so I think it's a waste. And if you are trying to maintain not a Eurocentric world, but a European perspective in the world, right? To have these two, one great imperial country with a long history and one nascent country that I really love, that's got a wonderful group fighting each other and killing each other, it's a freaking disaster. So it makes me very nervous for the future, because the whole eastern flank of Europe is getting weakened right now. And then things get weak, that's when people come in.
Well, and the thing is, there's a long history there. People don't know, of course, the history of Sweden and Russia as well. A long history there. But you go into the middle of Kiev, and there's the guy on the horse, and he's pointing. The statue I'm talking about. And I remember asking my friends years ago, what's he pointing to? And they said he's pointing to Moscow. And so, these clashes have been going on for.
I'm not claiming this is a first war. Believe me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. But my point is that
Poland invaded Russia in the 1920s. No one talks about it.
Right.
Right.
I guess what my point is that if they weren't getting all of the funding and the armament from outside sources, how many of those men would be saved? And I know it's not a perfect situation. It's like Elon said like a year ago or whatever. He's like, I think you're going to have the same outcome, and you're just going to have more men that are dead. And the guy Elon is a whole nother subject. Of course, Starlink was what a wonderful thing that he did there. And then as well, if everyone doesn't talk about it, but he's hooked up to Neuralink too. So the world's smartest man is freaking hooked up to Neuralink. He said he was going to do a press conference with it on it one time, and then he never really did it, which I thought was interesting. He hasn't done it yet. I'm sure he will.
He's famous for setting ambitious deadlines and missing them, but then doing it.
But don't we all? That's business, right? I mean, it really is. Because listen, if you're not ambitious, then you don't get anything done. And then of course, if you're ambitious, then sometimes you fail. Yeah. But I think that I wish that because the other part of it is that it's just like for the U.S. as well. Like I said, if they came to our door and they told me $3,500 per person, I have a family of 4, and they said, I need you to pay it up because we're going to send all these armaments to Israel and Ukraine and this and that. I would say absolutely not. And that's like the situation, because the truth is that most of Americans can't afford that. Actually, I would say 90% of Americans don't have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of money to give. But the fact that the global banking cabal, the central banking cabal, and the powers that be in this country are going to take it anyway through inflation and other means, it's criminal, and it's killing us too. It's killing the country. So I don't know. It's like Trump said. There's a lot of bad leaders. There's a lot of people people kill people. You know what I mean? And
Bro, this is the most
part of
political
it.
show I've had, and it's just when the YouTube algorithm decides Gordon was such a nice guy, but now look at him. Okay, hold on, like pause for a second. You go back to your media. Okay, your media, Washington elite, your groups, your followings, whatever. I mean, how are you? Totally different topic. How are you? In summary, because we're kind of running out of time. How did you grow your audience? Was it organic? Did you use tools? What was your thought process?
Sure. So to be, Washington Elite is one of my beloved brands. I bought that domain. It was funny. I was like watching TV or something, and they said, "Oh, the Washington Elite, this and that and the other."
Yeah.
Man, that's a good one. And I went over like WashingtonElite.com, and sure enough, there it was. And I well, shoot, man, I bought that thing, and I've had it for whatever 15 years or however long it's been. And that is one of my beloved brands. I've thrown a lot of different events with that. We've done all types of different philanthropic work as well. When I mentioned taking the blind vets places, we've done a lot of stuff with that, and so I love that brand. As we moved forward, of course, the evolution of Global Boost Media really started happening. So what we're building now with Global Boost is a decentralized media, and that's really the future. And we're going to continue, of course, Washington will continue. We'll continue to throw galas. We'll continue to do that stuff. But really, the Global Boost Media has really taken off. One thing I found is interesting. Twitter was always a place that I could grow an audience because even though they started to clamp down and this and that and the other, it was really more free than all the other platforms. And for a guy like me, obviously, that's a good thing. So. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously has been very much.
I mean, part of what I'm asking is, did you plan it? You got a big following. You got multiple channels. Did you plan it, or was it being very clever about opportunities that randomly showed up, or a blend, or do you have a master plan?
It was definitely a blend. I mean, we always wanted to grow the network. I feel like communication is key. If you want to be influential, you have to be on the mic. And that's why we do a daily show. We do 2 daily shows, because if you're not on the mic, how are you going to be influential? So it's a lot. You have to do it, and that's so that's pretty important. I think that planned, yes, as well as luck. Right? Luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So you're prepared, like I mentioned with the Indian guy that called me 5 years later. Said, "Okay, I'm ready," and then you're ready, and you go. We are going to the growth that we've had up until now, as I mentioned a little earlier, is going to be exponential over the next year or so as we grow out the TV stations. And I hope I'm wrong, but probably as these banks and everything start to fail and people remember, oh yeah, Bruce said that on the Impact Money show way back when. He's been saying this is going to happen. He's been saying I need to get out of the dollar. My dollar now, I mean, if inflation continues, eggs already went up to like $7. It's going to be like $15. So the growing of that.
You're also going to have a situation where, like it's Lebanon, where maybe you don't necessarily have inflation, but you can't take your money out of the bank.
Well, absolutely, and that's what I mentioned about FDIC. They only have 0.7% of all the assets, guys. So you're FDI insured. You think your $100,000 in the bank is insured, and it's not. It's not insured. I mean, it's not. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully all that stuff, like you said, hopefully that doesn't happen. But it very much has been, yes, we've always been trying to grow, but organic as well.
That's great.
That being authentic, coming on shows like this, opening up, some people may not agree with a lot of the things they say, but like I said, I pretty much like everybody, unless you're just mean or you're a bad person. I pretty much like people and we can get along. And that's what it's all about. When we were kids in the US, what was it all about? You didn't, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And you didn't have to agree with everybody. You know what I mean? Like that's what life's all about. And that's the spice of life, as they say, right?
I'll take you one further, which is we don't even have to all like each other, because you can learn things from people you don't like. It's not if you why did there's people you agree with who you like. Okay, that's one audience, right? There's people who you don't agree with but you like. When you train yourself to listen to people you don't like and don't agree with, when you can control your and just be quiet and not interrupt them and not get into the death stare, but just like listen calmly. Sometimes you pick up a little nugget of something that's you wouldn't get elsewhere. And so one of my adult tasks, which no one's perfect. One of my adult tasks is to engage with people. Look, I like you and I generally agree with you. It's not you. It's not you. You're fine. Okay, but I mean, seriously, I mean, look, I'm in Dubai. I don't necessarily agree with everyone. I don't agree with anyone on their foreign politics. I don't agree with their position on different groups, ethnic groups, or their religion or this and that. But I don't need to agree. I just shut up and listen. And every once in a while, I listen to something. And I'm like, darn shit. In this world of bleh, I just got a gym I would not have thought of otherwise, and none of my friends are saying this, and I need to listen to that. And it happens.
Well, and you're old enough to know that the more you learn, the smarter you get, and the more you evolve on things, and the more your views evolved.
Yeah. So that's why we need voices like yours. All right. So look, we're gonna wrap this up. What I'd love is for you to, I'm sure you will, give me all the links to all your different channels and media and everything, and I'll include it in the show notes.
Awesome.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you got family. I know you're at an ice rink. I know you got 47 channels to run. You're a good man. I'm always happy to see you, whether virtually or in person. So thank you very much.
Likewise.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on, Gordon. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you in Dubai and around the world.
Yes, I was dumbing down to stop the recording, but you gave me a nice compliment, so I let that one stay on tape. All right, very good. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.